For us, the keys have been to make sure that our people are getting the best that they can. We a few years back we instituted an educational stipend. So go take whatever classes you wanted that were going to be supportive of you in your role. I think we first did our first kind of structured values over a decade ago, and they've stuck. The acronym that they spell is CHARGED, and it stands for Collaborative, Hungry, Agile, Reliable, Genuine, Effective, and Dedicated. And the way we did that was we sat down a bunch of team members from different departments, different tenures in the organization, and said, "Tell us a story about why you love working here." And that was the impetus for it. And then of course we collected all those stories and mashed them all together. But what made it work, and I think what's made it stick, is that it wasn't top down. We didn't sit down as a leadership group and say, "Hey, these are the values that we think are most important, and we're going to now go force them down everybody's throat." They were derived organically from those conversations with the team.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today we're going to talk about strong culture. When you think about your culture, do you want it to change? Do you feel like it needs to change? Well, it's not the easiest thing in the world to change a culture. But if you can start off with a strong culture with really good structure and a foundation, you will have a much easier time with building the right culture. If you are feeling out of alignment with your employees, then culture is one of those things that you can start to change, but it is slow moving. I will tell you that from my experience. And it doesn't mean you should ignore it because it's hard. It means it's much more important. And so you as a leader, you probably need to take notes today in this conversation about a strong culture. We are with the co-founder and CEO of Search Influence. They do AI SEO. They do some other SEO stuff, but that's the new part of their business that is really starting to take hold. So if you're interested in AI SEO, make sure you check out Will Scott. And inside of this conversation, we talk about a strong culture, the importance of values, how they develop their values, how they use their values, the number one way which they live their values, and then another thing that they do at the exit interview that I won't spill the beans on, but I think is really interesting because I've never heard it before. My name is Gene Hammett. I'm a CEO coach. We do leadership development. We do manager coaching. We do executive coaching. We do all of the things in service of creating a strong culture, but also the right leadership structure as the company continues to grow. If you're feeling burned out, if you're feeling like you are the center of all the decisions, then you probably definitely want to go to one of our next trainings. If you're curious about that it's absolutely free. Go to training.coreelevation.com. You will find there a way to register for a next upcoming free training that will guide you through the process that we take our clients through so that if you feel like it's a good fit, if we can help you, you can lean in or you just take notes and then go and execute that on your own. But my hope is you will want to create the kind of leadership model that does scale as your business scales. And it's much easier. It's a lot more fun to build a business of your dream than pulling it along. So just go to training.coreelevation.com for that free upcoming training. Now here's the interview with Will. Hey, Will, how are you?
Hey, Gene, good to see you.
Excited to have you here on the podcast. We've got an incredible episode. Tell us about your company, Search Influence.
So, Search Influence is a nearly 20-year-old agency. We started out as an SEO agency, which back in 2006 was pretty rare. We've grown over time. We now do a lot of stuff within the digital marketing, umbrella. We have a great team that runs online ads. We've been super focused since our inception on tracking and measurement so that we can actually answer the question that clients really have, which is, what have you done for me lately? And in the last few years, we've really thrown our stake in the ground around AI and how we can use AI for both the craft, how do we do SEO better, but also how do we show up in the new search environment, which includes the AI search engines. And our online ads team, of course, is going deep on all of the AI that Google and Facebook are launching around their ad platforms. And it's just become a big kind of central theme for us.
I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there. What do you wish people understood about getting their brand to show up in AI?
So there's a big discussion in AI in SEO circles about is AI SEO different than traditional SEO? And so I think that the thing that I'd love people to understand is that it's 80% the same. And the unfortunate reality is that the people who've been doing it for you for the last decade have been doing it really badly, which is why you think it's something totally different. If you've been doing it right for the last decade, it's about 80% the same.
I'm fascinated by what's going to happen with this shift because I've been listening to other experts in the area like Gary Vaynerchuk and whatnot. And I remember what stands out to me, and you can comment on this for sure, is some people might ask, send me a pizza. Some people might ask, send me Domino's. I
Mhm.
wouldn't ask for either of those in my household. um, because I like more artisan pizza, if you know what I mean. But you've got to build a brand if you really expect AI to show your content. What are your thoughts on building the brand as an AI display or
I think I think that brand is critical, and depending on your context, it can be easier or harder. In a local context, if I'm that local pizza restaurant, let's say I'm your local artisanal pizza restaurant who's going to send you, nothing but farm fresh vegetables and vegan cheese, then that's an easier brand to stake out.
yeah.
And you can do it through a little bit of content well formed and then some references. So, much like in the old days when it was about content and links, now it's about making sure that your content is formatted in a way that it can be ingested and then regurgitated by the AI machines, including Google. But the piece that I think folks are not yet thinking about, which to me is a paradigm shift, is when search goes agentic. When you say not just, you say, get me a pizza, and it does all of the rest of the work for you. We were doing some testing around this for one of our clients who's a Chicago-based limo company, harkening back to your days in hospitality. And one of my colleagues asked ChatGPT's AI mode, book me a limo from O'Hare to the Hyatt Regency downtown Chicago. And the problem, and this is where I go back to the, 80% of it is the same as long as you were doing it right, is that the first few listings that showed up for that query, if you will, didn't have forms that the AI could manipulate. So it skipped to the one that it could actually fill out the form for you because it was more about doing the task than getting you the best possible limo service.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I could talk with you all day long about marketing and search because of my background and all over the years working with a lot of clients in this. But you've made the ink list, you said 9 times?
It's either 9 or 10, and I've lost track. But so here's the trick. You got to grow, 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 and then you got to sort of ungrow a little bit, and then grow, grow again, and that's how you hit it so many times.
I get the trick because it is a math formula, but for those who aren't aware of this, we focus primarily on ink growth numbers, which is a 3 year period. There's a minimum amount. You got to have at least a couple hundred thousand or $100,000 in revenue that first year, and then the clock starts ticking. And then by third year, you have to have at least 2 million in revenue. You guys have crushed this over the years. I've had clients that have made 10 years in a row, so they didn't have to have a fallback year, but their business model was much more advantageous to it.
Yep.
And that it does change. And this isn't about profitability either. It's
Yeah.
just about sheer growth. All that being said, it's been fascinated to have over 800 interviews with people like you, and I find patterns. And consistent growth is much sexier than I think one-time growth because you hit something right or you had one big customer. It's the consistent growth, building a culture, building a company that you're proud of, and that's one reason why we had you here on the show, Will.
Yeah, thank you, Gene. It's been a process, right? 20 years it goes by in a flash sometimes, and it crawls sometimes. But for us, the keys have been to make sure that our people are getting the best that they can. We a few years back we instituted an educational stipend. So go take whatever classes you wanted that were going to be supportive of you in your role. I think we first did our first kind of structured values over a decade ago, and they've stuck. The acronym that they spell is CHARGED, and it stands for Collaborative, Hungry, Agile, Reliable, Genuine, Effective, and Dedicated. And the way we did that was we sat down a bunch of team members from different departments, different tenures in the organization, and said, "Tell us a story about why you love working here." And that was the impetus for it. And then of course we collected all those stories and mashed them all together. But what made it work, and I think what's made it stick, is that it wasn't top down. We didn't sit down as a leadership group and say, hey, these are the values that we think are most important, and we're going to now go force them down everybody's throat. They were derived organically from those conversations with the team.
I love the way you've done it, and I love values so much. There've been so many conversations. I think over 60%, because we were looking at interviews. This was about a year ago when
Yeah.
we were publishing the book, and I thought my next book would be about living the values. It's not a sexy topic, but it's such a critical thing. Like when you think about living the values, is there one way that really is stronger than others to create the culture that you have?
So it's interesting because our values really are pervasive. They start at the first interview, and they continue through the exit interview.
Mhm.
So a place where I would say they're most obvious on a regular basis is we do a thing in our weekly all team meetings called kudos, and they sometimes also happen at the team and pod level. But way back in the day, we had one of our managers who would do these little kudos cards that were on index cards, and she had a pin board that the team would put them up on, and they were peer to peer, right? So it wasn't management saying, "Hey, attaboy, you've done a great job." It was me telling a peer, "Hey, I really appreciate how you supported me in this. Hey, the work that was produced here was great. You helped me out a lot on that call." And so what we did after we developed the structured values is we actually put them on the kudos cards. So when on a weekly basis the team is giving each other kudos, they're giving them according to a value, right? So you may have jumped out of your lane to help somebody out, and so your kudos is going to be about agility. You may have really nailed the presentation of a certain data point, and so it may be about effective. And so that's the place where I think they stay present in people's minds on a regular basis. But to the one that I really love that I think is kind of wacky is the exit interview. We ask everybody who's exiting the organization for whatever reason to grade us on how well we lived the charged values.
So Will was just talking about how they created their values, and it's a very valid way to go to your employees and pull out of them. I will also say it's a very valid way for you as a leader to come up with your values individually and see how they align with what the team comes up with. Because sometimes you need to shape the team into what your values are. What I mean by that is if one of your values is being proactive, and that's not a value that the team has come up with, then you will feel like you're always pulling people along because they're not being proactive. But if it is something that's very, very important to you and they're missing it, you can guide the conversation. You can figure out a way to work it in. But I do agree with what he's saying. The team element to creating values is a very important aspect. If you want our free tools for this, we give away them for free. Just send me an email, gene@genehammett.com. Happy to share that with you. Just say values, you heard it on the podcast, and it will be yours just for asking. Now back to Will. Tell me just a little bit more about that because I've never heard this. This is one reason why I do this. I pull out of people very interesting things, but I've never heard of it in an exit interview. They're grading you on how well you live the values as a company. Why do you do that?
Because we want to know, right? I mean, because we're an organization that thrives on feedback, right? We do start, stop, continues with every employee on an annual basis with somebody who's not their manager. We have open feedback forums. We do ENPS and we do NPS. So to me, if you're not asking the questions of how are we doing and how could we do better, then you'll never improve. I mean, what's the saying? Nobody learns from a compliment, right?
Yeah.
We want to hear where we're falling short so we can get better.
I hope people are really focusing on this because it's another way to use values in a way that shows that it really is a critical part of a strong culture. Well, you've demonstrated that you have incredible, staying power for growth. It's because of this strong culture. I know that you told me your retention rates were off the charts. Your executive leadership team has been around together for almost a decade.
Yep.
What's the underlying issue behind that? Is it because you have the stipend? I'm sure there's more to it than that. But what do you think the underlying issues or the aspects are to a strong culture?
I mean, I think that we've touched on a couple of them. The having values and living those values and holding yourself and everybody else accountable to them, I think is really important. the culture of feedback, being open to hearing it and to making change when it makes sense based on it, to supporting people in their growth, whatever that looks like. We have, having been around for 20 years and having had team members who've been with us for, I think our Max is our director of sales and marketing, who was with us for 15 years, right? We've watched these people live a big chunk of their adult lives with us. And so I think being able to support them in their growth, whatever that looks like, is a big piece of it. But none of it would work without the culture of feedback. If we weren't open to the input, then people would hit a brick wall and they'd be like, oh yeah, this isn't for me. I'm leaving. And I think it's a big piece of what has made us successful, both with our team, with whom we've got a great, long-lived kind of relationship, and also with the clients who stick around to be with those team members.
You also have the strategic adaptation that has played a role in your growth of your company. What is strategic adaptation at Search Influence?
It's it's a lot of things, right? The the key for us is to not rest on our laurels. And I mentioned when we were talking before that when we first started in 2006, nobody was doing SEO, or a very small number of folks were doing SEO as a pure practice. And then as we grew, we came to understand that clients needed advertising as well, because you couldn't do it all through organic search. And then we moved into a place where we saw that there was opportunity in social advertising. And so I think that the being open to change is really valuable. And then, interestingly, in the last few years, rethinking how we thought about ourselves, that it's hard to be a generalist agency. And so even if you're happy for anybody who comes through the door, it really helps to have a focus. And so one of our strategic adaptations in the last few years was, we went hard into a specific industry, and so we signed up with an association that a lot of them subscribe to, and partnered with them on data-based research, and a number, and just kind of banging that drum so that we came to be seen as the higher education SEO company. And it actually, funny story, my teammate Paula and I are on a sales call with a client in the last couple of weeks, and she parroted back to us our own messaging. We were like, success, right? We got it. So I think it's just, you got to be open to change. It was okay to just be a digital marketing company when that was a rarity, but I think now, if you don't at least have some specialization, and so for us, it's kind of a dual track right now. It's higher ed SEO and AI SEO, because that's the place where I've spent a lot of thought leadership over the last, 3 years now.
Now, Will's just talking about his journey of his company and the adaptation to his niches, and they've changed over the years, as they do with companies that evolve. Ours has changed, yours has probably changed. One of the things I want you to think about is a number one speech I had a few years ago was be the choice, not a choice. What I really mean by that is when you are seen by your clients as the choice, it's because you have a unique factor, you have a unique experience with you have, maybe you get results, maybe it's in an area where they specifically need you, and they see you as the choice and no one else will do. If they see you as a choice, then you probably won't get selected as much. You will probably be much more beat up on price, because a choice kind of companies don't have a specific brand in an area like we do for our coaching with fast growth companies. Just saying, whatever your brand is, hopefully you'll be the choice, not a choice. Back to Will. I'm glad that you talked about adaptability. I think a lot of companies would love for it just to be the same, but nothing stays the same. We all know that. As you get bigger, things get harder. I've even seen clients find their niche later inside of the company growth.
Yeah.
I do want to kind of switch gears a little bit, Will. You've got such a, a rich history here. Leadership principles that have changed over the growth of your business. Is there anything that you can remember how you started this that now you no longer see as a valid principle for leadership?
That's a great question. As I think about it, the one thing that I'll point to is, early on, when we thought we were unique, we thought everything was proprietary, and we thought we had to hold really tightly to the things that we knew. And over the span of time, what I have come to understand, and what I think the companies come to understand, is that we get a lot more value from sharing that knowledge. because then people get to see that we actually are expert and not just, not just doing the work. So that to me has been a way that we've thought differently as a leadership team. Is it used to be we would, and sometimes the question still comes up. It used to be is this too much secret sauce for us to be sharing? And now my perspective is share it all, because 99% of the people who hear it aren't going to act on it anyway. And the thing that it really does is reinforce for our clients that we know what we're doing and that they're getting the best of the best.
I know a lot of people have struggled with this. Like, why do people write books and they put the entire formula in the book and they give it away? It's maybe not free, but it's extremely cheap for the amount of work that goes into a book. And of
Right.
course, I've written a book, so I know this. But giving away too much is, I think, a real dangerous place for people to think, I'm going to hold back my best stuff. Whereas what you're saying is, we just give it away and we know people aren't going to use it and they need us to unlock it, probably. Would you?
I have a perfect example. I was talking about how much fun I've been having playing with like AI software tools and automation. And so, I mean, okay, is there an organizational value here? Yes, absolutely. Because if we can take a process that took, hours and turn it into minutes, that's a huge win, right?
Yeah.
But the other part of it is that then we can share that. And I've actually been open sourcing these projects. So as I build stuff, I'm putting it up on GitHub and I'll post about it on LinkedIn primarily, and people will really be into it and they'll, share it around. And then the next link is to my GitHub account. And I'm saying, go steal it, improve it, tell me what you made better, right? And so it's very much that's how deep I'm going in the idea of make it freely available, and people are gonna give you value from that.
Great example. I know we're about out of time here. Is there anything else that, building a strong culture that we haven't touched on that you want to make sure that we drive home?
One of my favorite bumper stickers of all time was simple phrase. It was consider that you might be wrong, right? So who was it? There's a famous literary writer who said something like never believe anything you read, but most of all, don't believe anything you believe, right? And so I think if you're not willing to question your beliefs and to make change based on what you learn in that questioning, then that's when you really stop growing. It's not about revenue or profit or team size or client count or whatever. It's when you stop questioning your own beliefs and growing from what you learn.
I think we need this message in all parts of life: government, education, healthcare,
Yeah, yeah,
this
I get it.
business. So thank you for bringing up that. I'll repeat it again. Consider you might be wrong.
Yeah.
I think that's a really powerful frame to spend some time looking at your business, looking at your leadership, your culture. So Will, thanks for being here and being a part of the show.
James, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Wow, what a great conversation today, talking about values. A strong culture is the backbone of a business. Now, I think that leadership and culture go hand in hand. It's one reason why this podcast focuses on both of those elements in fast growth companies. Search influence has been on the Inc. list many, many years. And so hopefully you see that as a valuable, recommendation, if you will, or a nod to their success and their performance. And they've gotten here because of a strong culture and the strategic adaptation that we talk about inside the episode. So hopefully you took good notes. And if there's any way we can help you, if you want the free training, just go to training.correlation.com. That's the next one coming up. It will help you be a better leader and help your company navigate the next level of growth. And when you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of growth thinking. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.